Hello, my noble band of outlaws, Outlaw Samurai, coming at you live with a video. This is the final video that I need to make for Tones 1 on actually cleaning your katana. I've done a lot of cutting with this one today, so let's get to it. The first thing you'll want to do is what I like to call the dry wipe, where you just wipe any excess moisture off the blade. Once that's done, take your WD-40 and gently spray it on. I like to work the WD-40 in with my finger, being careful not to make direct edge contact. Gotta remember to clean the spine of the blade as well. And then an extra little touch of WD-40 on the other side of the blade. This is where you really have to be careful of the edge. Just basically do the reverse of stropping. If the edge is facing this way, push towards the edge. If the edge is facing this way, same deal. Then you can just basically do whatever if you're just going to be making contact with the spine or the flats. Now, after your WD-40 has been applied, this way you grab a rag, and this way you can really work the WD-40 in along the surface of the blade without necessarily having to worry about the edge. The reason I like to work it in with my finger first is that way I can apply direct pressure to certain areas of the blade. Now, once that's done, that's pretty much really all you need to do to get rid of most of your residues from like any kind of packaging, like a sticky, like the stickers on a pool noodle, or like fruit and shit. The best time to apply WD-40 if you're going to be cutting fruit or anything that is food based, like fruit, meat, etc., is directly afterwards, so that the WD-40 has a chance to lift up that grease and oils before they have a chance to dry. With this, you're pretty much finished, but if you want to take it an extra step, you can, because there is still some residue of the WD-40 left on this. And from my experience, if you leave WD-40 on on swords, it tends to rust. Because WD-40 is not actually an oil, it is an oil remover. That means it cleans the steel, but will also cause the steel to rust a bit. This is where you'd want to use something like the choji powder. So, bat, 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 bat. You want to kind of rotate the choji powder and just kind of flick the ball up and down like this in your hand. It may be a bit excessive, but I tend to go a little overboard with this. Again, all you really need for a wiping cloth is a bounty paper towel. Take it, wipe it up the blade, and you can't really see it, but there is some dirt right here, as in the dirty choji powder. fold paper towel over. And I like to just keep wiping until I basically run out of clean surfaces of paper towel. Really get the most out of Bounty. And with that, your blade is perfectly clean. Now, if you so chose, at this stage you could go a step further. And what do I mean by that? You're probably wondering, outlaw, the blade's already clean. At this stage, you can add your polish. The polish is really there for removing unwanted surface scratches. So just a little bit of polish on the blade, and just like the WD-40 before, I like to work the polish into my with my finger. Now here's the thing about the polish: do not use too much. You only need a teeny tiny little bit. Maybe a tablespoon, maybe not even a tablespoon, maybe just a teaspoon of polish per side. Or half a teaspoon. And I don't like polishing the whole blade, I just like using the polish where I have to, and that is in the cutting portion of the blade. So like I said, a little bit of polish. And sometimes you'll have polish leak over from the previous side. That's perfectly acceptable. It just means you don't have to use as much polish. Now, a trick I like to use is I like to wrap my finger around the spine so that I can kind of keep my finger away from the edge as much as possible while still polishing and cleaning. This is a tip this is actually a technique that traditional Japanese polishers use with polishing stones, not a compound like I'm using. Then you just simply wipe. You will feel some resistance, especially if you're using like a shop towel. But generally, I don't find a lot of resistance with the Bounty. As you can see, that's all the excess gunk and scrap and such that was on the blade. The polish is really just a means of really finishing this blade and really removing all the little tiny surface scratches. It's not a necessarily needed step, but at least with the kind of polish I use, it leaves basically a clear coat behind that prevents stains from happening. And after all that, your blade is nice and clean and shiny again. Some of the scratches will not come out. That would require actually going in with like a buffing wheel and compound and really working it in. But basically, you get this nice shiny clean blade all over again. And continual use of this polish helps preserve the metal. That's why I recommend automotive polishes, because they are designed to preserve metal. Just sheave up the blade, and we are done. Basic cleaning of the sword is not necessarily a huge chore, and if done in one's preferred way, can actually be quite therapeutic and relaxing. It doesn't need to be a hassle. Usually while I'm cleaning my swords, I'll have like a video playing in the background or some heavy metal dwarven music playing. You know, something that kind of just relaxes me. And I get lost in the cleaning and the polishing and everything. And by the time I'm done, my blades have a damn mirror shine again. That's usually around the time that I actually get out of my Zen mode and realize I'm done already. But yeah. You don't really need or want to take the sword completely apart every time you're going to clean it. Simply because most of the time the gap between the habaki and the blade is so small that even if a few water droplets did get down by here, they're not going to go into the actual gap. And plus, most of the time when we're cutting with the upper 2/3 of the blade from my pinky to the tip. Basically, on this sword, it's sharp from about where my fingers are to the tip. This is pretty much the maximum area where you're going to cut, and most of the water when we cut goes in the direction of the cut because of the force. You may have a few stray drops down here, but 90% of the time, most of the water is going to be concentrated up here at the tip. And even though that there's no real purpose to do this in the terms of combat, the whole chiguri thing, where you flick the blade like this to get the blood off, I find that doing a chidori in terms of backyard cutting actually helps because it flicks a lot of the excess water off. Because blood is more viscous than water and will stick more. In fact, it's pretty much been debunked by a lot of the traditional Japanese practitioners and YouTubers like Let's Ask Shogo and Let's Ask Siki Sensei, that most of the time samurai, they would just carry like a cloth with them, and if they had to kill somebody, they just wipe the blade off and return it to its scabbard. Because as long as you keep steel clean and dry, it does not have a tendency to rust. Or at least, it does not rust quickly. But yeah. Now you're probably wondering, well, Outlaw, are you going to apply like choji or mineral oil? It's like, no, because I don't live in a climate that is excessively wet year-round. The only time the only time the climate around me ever gets excessively wet is after it rains. Indiana's summers are genuinely fairly dry and cool in comparison to a lot of other places. And our winters are pretty much the same. They're pretty much dry and cold for the most part. But as long as you keep the sword in the scabbard and it's dry and clean, you don't really need to worry about applying oil to the blade. Now, if you live in an area where that has an excessive moisture content or is very humid year-round, I would suggest putting a layer of mineral or baby oil onto the blade. Do not use a vegetable oil. If you're going to use any kind of preservative oil, gun oils, mineral oils, baby oil, those are what you want to use. Vegetable oils will rust your blade because they're not designed to preserve metal. They're designed to keep food from sticking to metal. But I hope that this has been very informative and has helped a lot of you. I know I kind of rushed through the cleaning process, and generally right about now is usually when I'm finishing the cleaning, because I'll spend about maybe 5 to 10 minutes usually rubbing this onto the blade to really get a nice smooth polish. This one argumentatively wasn't very dirty to begin with. I was just using it as like a quick guide. But until next time, my noble band of outlaws, Outlaw Samurai tells all y'all, be crazy rednecks, be safe and use your weapons, and Toes1, I hope that all this content finds you and you get some useful information out of it. I'm out, peace, and I can't wait to see the review of your sword when it gets here. When that sword gets here, I want you to Instagram me, tell me on one of, post something on one of these videos. Let me know, okay? I want to be one of the first ones to see the unboxing video. Yes, I am going to kind of hoard this information. Sue me. I'm out. Peace.